Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today we are jumping in and talking about the Solar War. This is the first book of the Horus Heresy Siege upon Terra series. So if you haven't read it, if you don't want to be spoiled, then please, for the love of the Emperor of Mankind, stop the video right now. Go buy the book. It's out on, I think it's out on digital. It's definitely out on audio because I'm listening to the audio right now. And it's out in paperback and stuff, I also think as well. So if you haven't done anything, just stop it because you're going to be spoiled and it's going to ruin it for you. This now is the end game when it comes to the Horus Heresy. After this series of books, that's it. It's over. It's over. We move on to wherever Black Library want to take us. So let's jump in and let's have a discussion. So when I first read this book, I was actually in Florida at the time. I was on vacation, so I actually didn't write any notes down because it was just like by the pool and stuff. I'm not going to be sat there writing notes down. I am listening to the audiobook at the moment, but it's really hard taking notes from an audiobook because by the time you wrote the note down, then it's moved on to the next bit and you've already missed it because your mind's processing notes rather than words going into your ears. So I'm using a chap's post of 40k lore and it's called JIDF-Shill. Sorry, dude, if I completely just butchered your name. He's done an absolutely fantastic, amazing write-up. I'll include the link to his post in the description of the video. Please go over, like it, and just give him praise because he's done the Emperor's justice writing this up. So the first big opening scene, you'll expect like a massive big battle. It's not a big battle. We're around a campfire and there's like an old man sat round this campfire. It's really, really dark. The flame of the fire is the only thing that's lighting it up, and we find out that the person, this chap who's sitting by the fire, is the Emperor, and this so-called thing that's happening is taking place in the warp, and Horus is there as well, but Horus is in a form of a wolf. And he's like circling the fire, he's circling the old man. It's kind of like, you know, chaos is circling terror. The firelight is like the beacon of the Emperor's light, bringing them all back. Horus is there goading the Emperor like, you're a tyrant, you lied to us, how could you do this? You're not best for mankind. And the Emperor like looks at Horus, he just ignores him. He's like, no, I ain't got no time for you. And he starts to speak to the shadows behind Horus, because the Emperor knows that Horus is not the powerhouse here. Horus is just a puppet, and the true powers are behind him, dangling Horus on the strings to their own wills to accomplish their own goals. So in this book, you first have to understand that it's basically, for me anyway, it was a book where they set everything up, like they put all the pieces on the table to enlighten you. By the way, in the background of this video, probably the entire video, I'm just going to put a map of the soul system that came in the book, because there's a lot of things I'm going to be talking about, certain gates and stuff like that throughout the video, so it'll just give you a visual representation of what I'm actually talking about when it comes to, you know, the engagements and the battles and all that kind of stuff. So if you're wondering why is there a map in this video, like, and I've already just been speaking about it, that is why. We get a general overview of the situation of the Sol system. Dawn has divided the system into 5 spheres of defense. The first at Pluto under Sigismund. Glory to Sigismund, Lord of all. The second is Uranus under Halbracht. The third is Jupiter under Ephred. The fourth overseeing the blockade of the traitor-occupied Mars under Camber Diaz. And the fifth consisting of Terra / Luna under the control of Dawn himself. So Dawn is like basically the last wall. Oh boy. Some of the 2 most important sites in the system are the warp gates, one at Uranus and one at Pluto. These gates were built during the dark age of technology, and they allow for warp jumps to and from the system without having to go to the Mandeville points. Dawn is commanding with mainly human command staff from his bastion of the Imperial Palace. The White Scars are deployed above and below the galactic disk to prevent flanking in maneuvers. You have to remember, right, this is one of the biggest things when it comes to trying to represent space combat. A lot of people will think Battlefield Gothic and think of it as a 2D battlefield. It's not. It's 3D. There's the full spectrum of of warfare. You can't just think like, okay, it's basically a football pitch. They'll come from the left or the right. No, it doesn't work like that. They'll come from underneath, certain angles and stuff like that. So you have to really jump into this situation and gear yourself down for that. Most of the Astartes have been recalled to Terra to defend the planet. Their warships are crewed mainly by human and servitor skeleton crews, with the Astartes boarding / defense and contingents. Dawn's goal is to basically stall Horus long enough until Guilliman can arrive and in his raid with reinforcements. And we basically kind of know that's what kind of happens at the end. That's not been fully cleared out yet. But the plan was, right, we need to hold these guys as long and as much as possible. So when Guilliman arrives with the Lion and whoever's got to be in the trail, Lehman Russ probably, maybe Korax and stuff, then that is when we can come out of the fortress and really trap them and go in on them and stuff like that. But for now, just hold your ground, get behind the walls, faith and fire in the Emperor. The attack on the Sol System finally begins on 0000014.m31. That's a lot of zeros. With the attack on Pluto's warp gate, massive amounts of traitor and Imperial ships start to swarm the gate. What I got from the gist of this is that basically the tactic was Horus wanted to choke the gate with bodies to overthrow the defense at that gate. There's a huge fleet of loyalist and defense platforms, starforms, and ships under Sigismund command. Sigismund opens up on them. It's initially a slaughter, but the enemy ships' hulls start to pile up and provide a screen for the new arrivals. That's what I meant, like by basically throwing as much bodies as you can. So it's like you're just clogging up they're basically their gun sites with just mass hulks of wreckage and just bodies and stuff like that. So once that is in play, that's when we start seeing the primary forces of the traitors start to arrive at the system. A Sons of Horus fleet under the command of Horus Aximund. For those of you who don't know, he's basically called Little Horus because he looks like Horus. And the Iron Warriors under the command of Sultan Volbron. Aximund boards 5 fortress moons of Pluto with a wave of newborns. Now this is really cool because the newborns are basically the Space Marines who have been created since the heresy began. So these guys never knew the Great Crusade. They're basically loyal to it's like the beginning of Horus's new army. Let's say. They're very feral, the savage, inexperienced as you would be because they haven't had obviously the training for the Great Crusade and all that kind of stuff. But it says thanks to the Dark Mechanicus scrap code attacks on the defense, they're able to secure most of the moons and turn their guns on the loyalists. So you have the Dark Mechanicus getting involved, doing all the scrap code, infecting all the systems, and that really helps like these newborn Space Marines to really get in there and take the moons of Pluto. So while that is going on Pluto, there is a second attack which occurs simultaneously at Uranus. This one is led by the Iron Warriors, which is basically Perturabo's fleet. Perturabo is the leader of this fleet, and under the command of Halbracht, which is the guy who's defending it in Dawn and the Imperium's name, they take a long-range position and snipe with Nova cannons into the oncoming formations. Large minefields and gun platforms are laid around the gate, boxing the traitor ships in and forcing them to endure a Nova barrage. So it's basically like you can't flank because your ship's going to get ripped apart by mines. You have to come forward, and when they're coming forward, the Nova cannons are just bang, 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 stuff like that. It's going badly for the traitors until 3 huge mass conveyor warps in and are used by Perturabo to fire ships that kamikaze into the loyalist formations and gun platforms. Basically what these ships are, the massive filled ships with just armor guns, and they just send it's basically the next tactic, just ram them in. We don't care if they lose, you're basically there to die. After this, a massive space hulk known as a Daughter of Woe appears and utterly devastates Helbrecht's fleet. This ship is absolutely massive. It can't move under its own weight. That's how big it is. It has to be pulled. If I remember correctly, I think it has to be pulled like by 10 to 15 ships, like at the front and at the back. So some are pulling it and some are pushing it and stuff like that because it's so big. It's so massive. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So Helbrecht withdraws to Uranus' dozens of moon fortresses, but the Daughter of Woe begins to subdue them one by one. The Iron Warriors are aided by a detailed map of the loyalist defences of the area given to them by the Alpha Legion, how dare they, which turns the battle that should have taken weeks into days. So you can see now with the Alpha Legion doing their little tactics, they managed to give the battle plans to Perturabo. He used that against them, and it stated, like I just stated, instead of it lasting weeks, it lasted days. So this is a massive, massive thorn in the side now for the Imperial forces defending. Now, a third major fleet appears after this. All the fleets are appearing, of course. It's Horus sending everything in. So this fleet consists of some of the main characters in the Horus Heresy. So you have fleets combined from the Sons of Horus, Wordbearers, Thousand Sons, and Dark Mechanicus. Mechanicum, not Mechanicus. We're still in 30k. This is under the command of Abaddon, Zardu, Layak, Araman, and Sota Null. They basically bypass some of the defense spheres, and they start to plunge directly down between Terra and Mars. But as I mentioned before, the White Scars had fleets, so on the top and the bottom, they were basically prepared for this. So the White Scars start to move in to engage these fleets, and they start to use basically White Scars tactics: go in fast, smash them, release everything, and then get out, turn back, retreat, and they basically repeat the process. That's what White Scars do. They're very fast, they're very hard-hitting, in and out before the enemy really knows what's going on, do as much damage, and then repeat the process. So basically the White Scars just went in, and they started, I won't say controlling the situation, but they started to handle the situation, let's say. Now, one part of the story is all about what I've been speaking about the defenses, the back and forth, how they're taking control and stuff like that. But a massive, massive part of this book is about a character that we're basically all familiar with. Mercedes Alatun, as I pronounce her name. I'm sure everyone pronounces it differently. So she was a prisoner on Titan, but since Titan has basically been moved into the webway, before all this happened by Malcador, all the prisoners on Titan were taken into a ship instead. And this ship was stationed at Uranus. Now, Alatun had a dream, and Keela in that dream appeared to her and said, "You need to go to Terra. You need to meet with Rogel Dawn. We have some vital news, which is so important to the Siege of Terra." Now, this prison ship then comes under attack. Amid all the chaos and stuff that's going down, the prison wardens or / guard on that ship start to execute the prisoners, because the last thing they want is for the prisoners to start falling into the hands of chaos, because that's where they've got them from. They've got them from these chaos people. Now, as they're about to kill her, as they're about to kill Alatun, the ship's gravity gets damaged, and she managed to kill the guard who's about to kill her, and then she escapes with a navigator. They get on a shuttle, and they basically get out of there. So she's now on the road to Terra to deliver news to Rogel Dawn. Now, for those of you who are wondering what the hell are Primarchs doing through all this, they're basically having meetings discussing what the hell they should do. So there's a war council on Terra. Dawn and his staff meet with Malcador, Constantine Valdor, Sanguinius Jagatai Khan, Kane's Mechanican emissary is there as well. Malcador, basically, he looks like half dead. Is supposed to be getting worse day by day. He's worried that Horus hasn't yet to show himself, which is suspicious. He dismisses the claims that the Emperor is doing nothing. The Emperor is holding back the tides of the war by himself, as a case gods directly attempt to swallow up the Sol System. We all know this by now. The Emperor doesn't really get involved because he's sat on the Golden Throne, holding the webway in place, because if that goes, then everything's dead. That is basically the true war, but it's a secret war. No one knows about it. So everyone's like, oh, the Emperor's doing nothing. Yeah, all this kind of stuff. He's not. He's actually fighting the most important war. Now, Jagatai Khan basically thinks the battle has already been won. Horus has lost the battle for Terra because they've done their job. They've held him long enough for Rabuti Gilliman to arrive. Sanguinius knows that this is not the end of Horus. He knows that he has to face Horus on the Vengeful Spirit. We all know this now. Sanguinius knows he's going to his death, so he knows that Horus is still in the power play moment, and it's only him that can fight him and take him down. Or should I say something else happens? Now, back on Pluto, this is where the fun begins. The last and the most powerful of the fortress moons is boarded and is about to fall to the Sons of Horus. Sigismund, being the commander of the first sphere of defense, orders his fleet to retreat, and as they flee, Horus Aximund, who I'm just going to say he's called Little Horus at this point, because we all know who he is. So Little Horus armadas begins to chase Sigismund's armada. However, this is a trap. Sigismund was prepared for this. He orders the reactors of the moon to be overloaded with datagen, and basically the moon explodes and it wipes out most of little Horus's fleet. Sigismund, seeing this, turns his fleet around and goes then into little Horus's fleet to try and salvage, a bad situation. Little Horus says, right, everyone, stop what you're doing, go for Sigismund's ship. If we can take the head of the beast, then the body will die. It comes down to it that the sons of Horus board here Sigismund's ship, and it becomes a battle between like the first foundations of the Templars, the Templar Brethren, Sigismund, little Horus and his bodyguard. The leader of the Templar Brethren, Boreas, is like the main commander, is mortally wounded by Aximand. Aximand does some damage to Sigismund in his side. Sigismund orders a full retreat. He then teleports off his ship to somewhere into another Imperial Fist ship, but before he does that, he slices the arm off little Horus. He's gone. He's lost an arm now. I think he's like half his face is gone now. He's got this pulled face, and now he's just lost an arm to the most badass space marine who ever lived. Now, on board this new vessel where Sigismund has teleported to, he basically looks at the flow of traitor ships coming from Pluto's gate, and it's endless. There's just no end to it. It's like, wow, okay, there's a lot of guys here. They've done their best they can do, and he orders like a massive general retreat now. Everyone fall back from the first sphere, because the first sphere of defense has now fallen. And there's a similar situation going on at Uranus as well. It's going very, very bad. The forces of the Iron Warriors and everything who's involved at that area, led by Perturabo, are just taking all the moons, the Iron Blood, Daughter of Woe, and a huge amount of armada. 4,000 ships are sweeping aside the Fortress Moon's defense network. Many of the moons have been rammed by huge transports, each holding hundreds of thousands of comatose cultists, mutants, and hive gangers gathered by the Iron Warriors on the way to Terra. When the ships make contact with a target, drugs flow into the holding chambers, and their occupants awaken in a drug-fueled frenzy. Halbrak has committed only 1/3 of his fleet, around 100 ships, to the battle so far, and orders the rest to retreat as part of a stalling tactic. Perturabo knows time is everything, and his Iron Warrior fleet pursues them, leaving the Uranus battle zone. Instead of wasting time to subdue each Uranus moons and defense stations individually, he unleashes waves of human and mutant pirate vessels, as well as ships of the Emperor's Children, Night Lords, and traitor space marines that have since formed their own warbands. The forces fall upon Uranus as well as Neptune and Saturn, while Perturabo pursues Halbrak. The second sphere has basically fallen. So you have the first and second sphere more or less go down at the same time. Now we go back to the battle between the sons of Horus, the word bearers, and the Thousand Sons, who are basically teleported in between the defensive spheres, but above Terra and Mars and stuff like that. So they managed to board the White Scars flagship. Abaddon faces the commander of the White Scars forces, which is none other than Jubal Khan, the Laughing Swordsman, I think he's known as. Abaddon and him have a fight. Sadly, Jubal Khan is killed by Abaddon. To be basically fair, I personally knew this was coming because this is Abaddon. We all know what happens with Abaddon. Abaddon is now in 40k. He's the main guy. So Abaddon, we all know he survives the Siege of Terra. Now, what happens is that since the White Scar fleet basically splinters then and is more or less defeated, the traitors finally reach their intended points above the space between Terra and Mars, and their fleet divides itself into 3 parts. One under the command of Abaddon and Lyac moves towards Luna. The larger Dark Mechanican ships move under Soter towards Mars to break the loyalist blockade there, and Araman's Thousand Sons move towards the Terra Shrine Comet, previously seen in the novella The Purge. Very, very cool if you haven't read that. Now, back with Mercedes Alatun, her journey continues. Her shuttle is rescued by human refugees fleeing towards Jupiter. She's basically being hunted by both loyalists, who know she's an escaped criminal of high value, and also the word bearers. The adult refugees blame her for the misery and death being brought upon them, because of wherever they go, basically, there's drama, let's say. Eventually, by Jupiter, she's able to send out a distress signal to Terra that simply states, Missandei Loken. Now, at Terra, Garviel Loken comes across this distress signal and storms into Malcador's chamber. He has an argument saying, you know, why have you ordered her to be killed and stuff like that. Malcador declares her as a threat due to her previous contact with the enemy and states he would have kept the order to kill the prisoners even if he knew she was among them. Loken storms off to go rescue her, and then Suzkassen asks Malcador why he doesn't stop Loken. What you know, stop him. You know, what are you doing? And Malcador is weary and simply states maybe an act of compassion is what is needed in these troubled times. Now we go back in the warp, and Malcador appears before the Emperor. The Emperor is still like that kind of cave/old man over the fire. Malcador takes form of a golden young man and asks the Emperor for information on what Horus is up to. He still hasn't shown himself in the Sol system. He also asks the Emperor if victory is possible. The Emperor states that's not the question Malcador is really asking. Malcador then asks if they or anything can survive what is coming. The Emperor doesn't respond and simply sadly closes his eyes as Malcador vanishes, should I say. At Jupiter, Halbrak's remaining fleet joins with the third sphere under Ephried. Together, the two forces engage the Iron Warriors in a titanic but largely off-screen battle. Glorious Imperial Fist Purging Iron Warriors, you can't get better than that. At the same time, the Dark Mechanicus fleets arrive at Mars. Here is the largest Loyalist fleet outside one of the defending Terra itself, with not just the Imperial Fist and the Imperial Army, but also a big force of Blood Angels. Camber Diaz has been overseeing the blockade of the traitors of Mars for years now. From Mars, daily assaults and breakout attempts are launched. However, now he comes under attack from both sides. Sotanul's fleet and the forces of Mars itself launch simultaneously strikes. Another huge but largely off-screen battle erupts. On Terra, Dawn decides to finally commit the Phalanx to battle. He orders the station to move to Luna to clear it of Abaddon's fleet, because don't forget Abaddon's fleet moved to Luna to, you know, do what they're doing, and then they will move to Mars to deal with the Dark Mechanicus attack. He moves his staff from the Imperial Palace to the Phalanx and takes a personal command of the vessel. Jagatai and Sanguinius both state that the power of the Phalanx will turn the tide. However, before they leave, Loken and Alatun arrive and race aboard to meet with Dawn, because Loken went and saved Alatun. Alatun asks Loken where the navigator Nilius is, and he comments he didn't even see him during the rescue, which is kind of strange. What's going on here? Now, back at Luna, Abaddon plunges his battle barge, War of Oath, towards the defences of the Ring of Luna in another kamikaze attack. This occurs just as Ahriman's ritual, which is taking place on the comet that he went to. Before the ship's impact, Abaddon and his warriors teleport aboard Luna's surface as 20-kilometer long hole is blown in Luna's defense ring. Ahriman's ritual takes effect, and a massive black shadow that briefly blocks out the sun is born. The shadow creates mass panic among the mortal loyalists across the system, but far worse is the warp rift that is being born from it in the space between Luna and Mars. From this rift finally emerges the primary traitor force. The fleet is over 10,000 vessels strong and is led by the vengeful spirit under Horus himself. Angron appears to be perched on top of the Conqueror in void space. I crap you not, Angron is riding a battle barge. As Angron would at the head of a huge armada of the World Eater ships. The primary fleets of the Emperor's children, the Thousand Sons, also appear, but there is no sign of Fulgrim or Magnus. Following the ships are millions of winged demons, and this huge force plunges down into Luna and Mars. Now, on board the Phalanx, Loken and Alatun rush to meet Rogel Dawn aboard the Phalanx just as the warp rift is beginning to appear. Dawn agrees to meet her for her message, and as she is the one who's informed him of Horus' rebellion in the first place, if you remember Flight of the Eisenstein, all that kind of stuff. Now, she starts to have like a kind of trippy flashback, meeting with Malagurst, and finally gives her message. Samus is here. demon Samus manifests from Alatun, and thousands of demons appear all over the Phalanx. Dawn's command bridge becomes a bloodbath. Samus gloats and explains that shortly before the Battle of Istam 3, Malagos implanted a warp eye into Alatun in order to spy on Loken. Samus has appeared to Alatun in both forms of Keeler and Nilius. So basically he's been playing them all along. There was no navigator, there was no Keeler message. He just wanted to get here and start his bloodbath party. Now Dawn throws himself at Samus, so you're having Dawn fight a massive demon again. Now what happens is that when Samus appears, he basically reverts Loken to his madness of Cerebus persona. So do you remember like when he was like really insane and stuff and Garrow found him? He's basically back there, like in that, it's like having PTSD, let's say. Sigismund's ships arrive and he lends aid to the Battle of Phalanx. Masadi Alatun is in a state of what she's done, and she's all sorts of trippy chaos visions. She's like, oh my god, what's happened? In desperation, Dawn releases the Imperial Fist librarians that are held aboard the Phalanx. If you didn't know, Rogue Dawn locked all the librarians away when the Edict of Nicaea came on the Phalanx, so they couldn't get involved, which is really awesome. Dawn and the librarians slay Samus, but he's simply reborn in the corpse of one of the fallen. The demons are now infecting the Phalanx and forcing the guns to be turned on the Imperial fleet. Dawn and Suskan start to initiate protocols to self-destruct the vessel to deny it to the enemies. Loken / Cerebus personality and Alatun together manage to put down Samus a second time, but he almost immediately begins to be reborn into a new body. To prevent this, Alatun throws herself into the reactor shaft of the Phalanx. With her death, the portal from which the demons entered is closed, and Samus and his hordes vanish from the Phalanx. Now back to Luna, the situation is going from bad to worse as a massive newly arrived traitor armada decimates the reeling battlefleet Solar. Abaddon and his Justarian and Lyak and his word-bearers battle through all sorts of servitors and genetic monstrosities in gene labs of the moon. These labs once belonged to the Selenar, the gene cult that was subdued by the Emperor early in the Great Crusade and forced to mass-produce the Space Marines. However, as the Crusade expanded, the Selenar labs became less important and the Space Marines were produced elsewhere. The last of the remaining Selenar labs are nothing less ordered to be destroyed by Rogue Dawn. However, the Selenar matriarch Helios-78 hesitates with an order as Abaddon and Lyak arrive in the chambers. Helios ultimately pledges himself to Horus. Instead of destroying her gene tech, Abaddon states that Horus already knew she would do this and orders her to build him more Space Marines. Traitors everywhere. Now, aboard the Phalanx, the demons are gone, but the traitors are closing from all sides. Dawn boards Sigismund's ship with Loken and the other fists and says he will return to the Imperial Palace. He orders Suskasan to take the Phalanx into the Outer Sol system in order to save it and harass the rear of the traitors. Sigismund's ship flees the Phalanx and docks in Terra's atmosphere. Now, the Imperial positions in the rest of the Sol system have completely collapsed. Jupiter has fallen to Perturabo. At Mars, Cambidias orders his remaining forces to retreat, and Mars is now liberated for the Dark Mechanicum, with Sotanua kneeling before Calbor Hal. Horus is at last over Terra, and on the 13th of the Secundus, the first bombs fall on the throne world. And the last scene we have is back in the warp. Horus appears in his human form before the Emperor. The Emperor is still that kind of like cave / old man kind of situation. Horus again golds the Emperor. Horus states that he is here and the Emperor is alone. He and the Emperor should have some private chat time. The Emperor finally responds, stating that Horus is never alone and now that he sees what's beside him. The fire is so weak that Horus can actually pick up the wood and hold the embers to his hand. The vision vanishes as Horus gloats that he is coming and the only choice left for the Emperor is to run. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of it. This was the first book by John French, The Solar War, and I have to personally say, wow. Just, if this is where it's starting, if this is like the base, what the rest of the books are going to be compared to, then it's going to be an amazing ride. There's so much that goes into this, which hurts my head. Like, I just basically thought some ships turn up, they start pew-pewing, that was it. They deploy troops onto Terra, and it's, you know, it's just that. But it's not. There's so much more. There's the gates, the defense platforms, there's the fears of defense. There's so much that goes into this to expand it, to make it just another level of awesomeness. And I've got to commend John French. Absolutely fantastic job. And for those of you who have read it, for those of you who haven't read it, please go and buy it. I will include links in the description to the books and everything like that, where to get it all. It is an amazing, you will not be let down. It is probably one of the best books I've read in the Horus Heresy. Absolutely fantastic. Right, that is me done for this video. I hope you chaps have enjoyed it. It's been fun, it's been emotional. Massive shout out to JIDF-Shill again over on 40k lore Reddit. Please go over to that Reddit. It's probably one of the best 40k Reddits there is, by the way. There's so much awesome quotes and stuff like that. So a massive thanks to you, dude, for doing this write-up and helping me out. You are amazing. And thank you all for listening for how many minutes I've been going on for now. It's been emotional. I'm out. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you very, very soon. See you now, and bye-bye.